Imagine opening your utility bill and discovering the power company apparently thinks you're running a secret theme park in your basement. America's billing system doesn't just make mistakes, it invents entire alternate realities. And trust me, the delusions get a lot wilder from here. 1. I once saw a guy open his electric bill and stare at it like it had just confessed to a crime. According to the power company, he'd used enough electricity to light Times Square during New Year's Eve, despite living alone in a one-bedroom apartment where the most advanced appliance was a microwave older than the Bush administration. He called customer service, and they cheerfully explained he'd been estimated. Estimated? Based on what? NASA launching a shuttle from his bathtub? The man hadn't turned on his AC in 3 months, but apparently the utility company decided he was secretly running a cryptocurrency mine, a tanning salon, and possibly a lighthouse. And the best part? They told him the bill looks normal on our end, which is corporate speak for we made it up and we're sticking to it. 2. Then there was the woman who got charged a $412 water usage correction. Sounds mild, right? Except her house is on a well, a private well, as in she literally doesn't use city water. When she politely mentioned this tiny, microscopic detail, the utility company said the fee was still valid because everyone pays something. Everyone pays something? That's not a utility system. That's a cult. They basically charged her for imaginary water that flowed through imaginary pipes maintained by imaginary workers. She asked where that money goes. They told her infrastructure maintenance, which is the universal translation for don't worry about it. Meanwhile, her meter sits outside like a decorative metal lawn ornament, apparently capable of billing her from an alternate dimension. 3. One guy received a gas bill that proudly informed him he owed 0.0 RORs, and then an additional line that said, "Payment due immediately." Imagine being commanded to urgently pay nothing. It's like being mugged by a mime. Naturally, he called customer service, who said that failing to submit a 0.00 payment could trigger late fees. Late fees on what? The absence of money? Are they charging negative interest now? So he asked them how to pay $0. They told him to send a check for $0. I don't know what's worse, the bureaucracy or the fact that somewhere a bank teller had to process a check that literally represented the concept of nothingness. If Kafka worked in utilities, this would have been his autobiography. 4. A family once got hit with a mysterious, excessive sewer usage charge during a month when they were out of town, as in the house was empty, dark, locked, and not producing so much as a toilet flush. The bill implied the home was secretly hosting a rave for sewer, gremlins. When they questioned it, the city suggested maybe a neighbor had used their line. Used their line? What does that mean? Someone broke into their house just to use the bathroom? Did the neighbors treat the place like a public restroom with good lighting? The city wouldn't budge, insisting the system recorded flow. Personally, I'd love to meet the engineer who built a sewer system so incompetent it can't tell the difference between human plumbing and paranormal activity. 5. A man once opened his heating bill during spring, a season when his furnace had been off longer than his New Year's resolutions, and discovered he was charged for winter peak usage. Winter peak usage in April. According to the utility company, his house apparently experienced a rogue blizzard while the rest of the state enjoyed sunshine. When he questioned how he could possibly have used heat he didn't turn on, they told him the bill reflected seasonal averages. So, essentially, he was being billed for hypothetical heat he might have used in a universe where he forgot how sweaters work. They even suggested he budget better next winter, which is bold advice from a company whose business model is essentially astrology with more paperwork. 6. Someone once got a power bill accusing their home of using more electricity in one day than they use in an entire month. Not a small increase, like quadruple their usual consumption, enough to power a small amusement park. When they called to ask if perhaps maybe a large portion of the grid had accidentally been routed through their kitchen outlet, the rep coolly said, "Your meter is accurate." Accurate? The meter looked like it had been installed during the Nixon era and hadn't been calibrated since the dinosaurs roamed. They suggested maybe the customer had run multiple high-voltage appliances. Yes, because everyone casually operates a welding station beside the toaster. They even suggested checking for unauthorized use, like a neighbor was plugging into their siding like a raccoon with a USB cable. 7. A guy moved into a brand new apartment and received a $600 water bill before he even had the keys. Before he moved in. According to the city, the empty unit had consumed massive amounts of water despite containing nothing but dust and a faint smell of new drywall. He asked if maybe the meter was broken. They insisted no. The empty shell of an apartment had apparently been hosting several daily bubble baths without his knowledge. They told him the charges couldn't be waived because usage was recorded. I love this because it suggests water meters are less measurement devices and more creative writers, capable of producing exquisite fiction about events that never happened. 8. A couple once got a bill that included a $39.99 charge labeled simply miscellaneous. No explanation, no breakdown, just vibes. When they called to ask what it was for, the rep said, "Oh, that's just a general fee." A general fee for what? Existing? Thinking about electricity too hard? Buying a scented candle that offended the grid? The rep eventually admitted no one actually knows what the charge is for, but everyone gets it. That's not a utility bill, that's a subscription to confusion. It's the financial equivalent of finding a spoon in your sock drawer. Not harmful, but deeply troubling. 9. One woman discovered a meter access obstruction fine because the technician couldn't reach her meter, which was installed inside a locked utility room that only the utility company has the key for. That's right. They fined her because they couldn't access a room they themselves control. When she pointed this out, they explained that protocol requires accessibility, which is a fancy way of saying, "We messed up, but we're charging you anyway." It's like a pizza place billing you for a delivery they never made because the road looked tricky. The cherry on top? They recommended she keep the path clear, which is amazing because unless she can walk through walls, I'm not sure how she's supposed to help. 10. A man once got a bill that included a $58 charge for gas line monitoring. He doesn't have a gas line. His home runs on electric appliances. When he asked why he was being charged for a service that physically cannot apply to him, they explained the fee was mandatory for all customers. Mandatory for all, meaning he's paying to monitor a gas line that exists only in the rich, imaginative headspace of the billing department. At this point, I'm convinced utility companies don't sell water or electricity. They sell audacity, and business is booming. 11. A single mom once received a bill showing her water usage spiked by more than 600% in 1 month, enough to fill an entire backyard pool, which she absolutely does not own. When she called, the rep casually said, "Maybe you took longer showers." Unless she showered continuously for 27 straight hours, that math is not mathing. They then suggested she check for leaks, which is utility company code for, "We don't know either, but it's definitely your problem." They still tried to charge her the full amount, insisting the data was accurate. Data which, according to them, suggests one woman was secretly hosting the Olympics of hydration in her bathroom. 12. A man got billed a $75 paper statement handling fee. Not for receiving paper statements, he gets digital, but for declining paper statements. Yes, they charged him for the absence of paper. The rep explained it as a processing cost. Processing what, exactly? The void where paper would have been? The concept of restraint? Did someone in their office have to ceremonially bow to a printer and whisper, "Not this month"? It's a fee that essentially says, whether you get paper or you don't. We're charging you either way just because we feel like it. 13. A couple once got charged for storm recovery fees during a month when their region had 0 storms. They called to ask what the fee was for, and the rep said, "We're preparing for future storms." So now they're charging based on predicted weather? What's next? Sunshine fees? Possible wind taxes? They essentially paid for the idea of a storm. Meanwhile, when an actual storm hit 3 months later, they lost power for 2 days. And when they asked if that fee covered quicker restoration, the company said, "That's a separate charge." Of course it is. 14. A guy once received a $129 meter malfunction fee. His meter malfunctioned because it was 37 years old and corroded. He asked why he was paying for equipment he doesn't own and didn't break. They said, meter maintenance is shared responsibility. Shared? Like a group project where you're assigned the broken part? They even warned him future issues might incur additional customer accountability charges. So basically, they provide ancient, dying equipment. then bill you when it continues being ancient and dying. It's like renting a car and being charged because the engine had bad vibes. 15. And finally, my personal favorite, a woman got charged for excessive streetlight usage. She doesn't own a streetlight. No one does. The city does. When she called to ask how she could possibly be billed for municipal lighting she has no control over, the rep said, "Your property benefits from the glow." Benefits from the glow. Incredible. They basically charged her for moonlight, but with paperwork. She asked how they calculate the fee. They told her it's a neighborhood-level assessment. Translation: we just divide a random number by everyone and hope nobody complains. And honestly, who among us hasn't dreamed of paying rent to a street lamp for illuminating our driveway with its holy fluorescent blessing? 16. A guy once received a bill charging him for non-standard electricity patterns, which sounds like something you'd get if you were using a Tesla coil to resurrect Frankenstein in your garage. According to the company, his home showed irregular consumption spikes, which is corporate code for "our system glitched, and we're pretending it's your fault." The man asked if they could explain the spikes. They said, "Only the algorithm knows." Fantastic. We've reached the stage where power companies are blaming haunted math. The rep even suggested checking whether any appliances were behaving unusually, as if his fridge might be running a side hustle or staging a coup. He eventually paid the bill because fighting an algorithm is like arguing with a feral cat. Technically possible, but the cat will win, and you'll feel stupid afterward. 17. Then there was the couple who got billed for seasonal electrical harmonization. That's not an engineering term. That's what someone writes when they forget the real charge and panic. They asked what it meant, and the rep proudly said it's the process of adapting grid loads to seasonal shifts. Translation: a made-up service where the company essentially bills you for the weather. They were charged $54 for harmonizing, as if their house needed to rehearse with an orchestra. The best part? The charge appeared every month, including the month their power was out for 2 days. Yes, they were billed for harmonizing with electricity they didn't have. It's like paying for a gym membership while the gym is literally on fire. But don't worry, your abs will be spiritually toned. 18. A homeowner once got a warning that their water usage had reached emergency levels, suggesting maybe they'd opened a water park in the backyard. The city demanded an immediate payment, plus a fine for irresponsible consumption. When the homeowner pointed out that their water was actually shut off due to maintenance, the rep responded, "The system must have recorded expected usage." Expected usage. So now the city charges based on hypothetical hydration. They insisted the average home uses X gallons per day, so the homeowner should too. That's the civic equivalent of handing someone a restaurant bill for food they didn't eat because most people get dessert. The homeowner asked how to dispute it, and the rep said, "You can't dispute expectations." Which is funny because I've been disputing expectations my entire life. 19. A man once got a trash bill that included a landfill acceleration fee, which is the most poetic nonsense I've ever heard. He asked if this meant his trash decomposed too quickly or too slowly. The rep said it covered the cost of projected future landfill space, so they charged him rent. For dirt, that will exist later. That's next-level capitalism. He even asked if he could buy less future dirt, and they said no, because space allocation is universal. Universal, meaning, we made this up, and now you're trapped. My favorite detail? The charge fluctuated each month based on market conditions, which suggests someone, somewhere, is day trading imaginary garbage space. Truly the peak of American innovation. 20. One woman opened her gas bill and found a new fee. Pipeline Serenity surcharge. I'm not joking. Serenity. Apparently, the pipeline system needed periodic stress mitigation measures, which sounds like they hired a therapist for the pipes. She called in, and the rep said the charge covered vibration stabilization. Translation: we're charging you because metal exists. She asked if the line near her home had ever actually vibrated. The rep paused, then said, "Well, we assume all lines vibrate at some point." Amazing. They're billing her preemptively for hypothetical emotional turbulence inside the pipes. Personally, if my gas line needs serenity, I feel someone should at least light a candle or play whale sounds. 21. A guy once received a $90 street infrastructure compatibility fee after updating his fridge. Yes, because he replaced an appliance inside his house, the utility company charged him for ensuring harmony with surrounding infrastructure. Harmony, as if the new fridge might rebel against the sidewalk if not properly supervised. He asked what compatibility tests were performed. The rep said they don't do tests. The fee is symbolic. Symbolic? Imagine being billed for a symbolic service. It's like getting an invoice from the DMV for the spiritual alignment of your license plate. He tried refusing to pay, but the rep said non-payment would result in a compatibility review, which sounded threatening enough that he surrendered. 22. A woman once got charged a $33 fee labeled unspecified usage event. Naturally, she asked what the event was. The rep responded with genuine confidence. We do not know, but it was significant. Significant in what way? Financially? Emotionally? Spiritually? No clarification. The system detected something, and apparently that something was her problem now. She asked if this could happen again. They said it could happen at any time. That's not billing. That's a prophecy. Her bill basically came with a jump scare. At this point, I'm convinced the utility company is just shaking a magic 8-ball and billing people based on vibes. 23. One household received a notice stating that their usage exceeded the community norm, implying they were some kind of resource-wasting rebels endangering suburban harmony. Their usage? Slightly above average for the neighborhood, and only because they have 3 kids who occasionally shower. The city told them to consider reducing indulgent practices. Indulgent practices? What are we calling indulgent now? Bathing? Washing dishes? Existing with pores? They asked for the official community norm number, and the rep said it adjusts dynamically, meaning there is no number. The number is whatever makes you look guilty. It's basically guilt-based billing. 24. A man once got charged for heat dissipation imbalance. He doesn't know what that means. Nobody knows what that means. When he asked the rep actually said, "It's complicated," which is code for, "We absolutely made this up." Supposedly, his home was releasing heat inefficiently, which is fascinating considering he barely used his heater. Apparently, warmth escaping your house is now a billable offense. He asked how to prevent future charges. The rep suggested reducing interior temperature fluctuations, which is the most unhelpful phrase ever spoken. He ended the call knowing nothing except that physics now costs extra. 25. A couple once received a $120 grid connectivity assurance fee. When they asked what it assured, the rep said that you remain connected. They pressed further. What would happen if they didn't pay? The rep said, you would remain connected. So paying or not paying changes nothing, except their bank account balance. The couple asked if this fee was new. The rep proudly said, yes, it was added to simplify billing. And nothing simplifies billing like making it more expensive for no reason whatsoever. I hope whoever invented this fee got a raise, because honestly, this level of audacity deserves recognition. 26. A woman received a warning that her home had exceeded the projected water profile for her demographic. Her demographic? She asked what that meant. The rep said, your age, household size, and expected habits. Expected habits? So now utilities are profiling people's hydration levels. According to the city, she was over-consuming relative to predicted behavior, which is a fancy way of saying she drank water on a hot day. They suggested she align with regional expectations, which sounds less like municipal advice and more like brainwashing. Imagine being told you're using water incorrectly. Only in America could hydration become a bureaucratic sin. 27. Someone once got billed for complex meter interpretation labor. Translation: a guy had to squint at their meter. They called to ask why this was their responsibility. The rep explained that when the meter readings are ambiguous, the customer funds the extra interpretation time. They asked what made the meter ambiguous. The rep said, it's old. Whose job is it to replace old meters? The utility company. Whose job is it to pay because they didn't replace the meter? Apparently the customer. It's like paying a restaurant extra because the chef couldn't read their own handwriting. 28. A homeowner received an equipment environmental impact fee because their home appliances were creating stress on the grid's ecological balance. Their appliances, a fridge, a toaster, and a washing machine from 2012. Unless those appliances were moonlighting as industrial machinery, nothing about them screams ecological threat. The rep said the charge helps support environmentally responsible grid management. So, they're saving the environment by charging random people for owning a blender. The homeowner asked if buying newer appliances would help. The rep said newer appliances incur a modernization impact fee. So, either way, you lose. 29. And finally, a man received a bill that included a charge labeled simply City Initiative. No description, no details. Just a confident little line item that could have been a tax, a donation, a prank, or a legally binding mystery. When he asked what initiative he was funding, the rep proudly said, "We don't have that information yet." They charged him for a future project they haven't even invented. He asked if he could opt out. They said no. The initiative is mandatory, even though the initiative doesn't exist. At this point, the city is basically crowdfunding ideas it hasn't had yet. Honestly, if they'd at least called it surprise expenses, I'd respect the honesty. And that's it. Proof our utilities operate in a parallel dimension. Drop your own outrageous bills in the comments, vote for the dumbest, and stick around. The madness only gets worse from here.